Welcome, friends. Yet again, another live reality games podcast today. I am your co host, Kirk. We are still talking about Survivor BC Season 7. What an epic season. And with me is not Taylor this time, but a man behind the scenes, Steven,
Hello,
who
everyone.
helped out kind of with a lot. Yes. How are you doing, Steven?
I am doing great today. What about you, Kirk? This is number 3 for you.
Oh, I'm getting a little tired. Just having a little relaxation right here. So still with it, but we're not here to talk about us.
Nope,
We're
not
here
at
to
all.
talk about somebody, yes, that made a big statement on Survivor BC, somebody who's going to be remembered for a long time, and that is Knight. Welcome, Knight. How are you doing this evening?
Hey everybody, I'm pumped. I'm stoked to be here. Like I love talking about this kind of stuff. So obviously doing it deep, and I love talking about myself. So this is just perfect. I can talk about Survivor, my game, and myself. It's great. And I'm with you in the drinking department because it was a long day for me too. So don't worry, we'll get through this together. It's gonna be great.
Sounds fantastic. And Steven has his ice cold water with us as well. So let's get right into it. Knight, I was rewatching Confessionals, and you mentioned that you host an org. So I kind of want to find out a little bit more about you outside of the game first. What org do you host, and how long have you been hosting?
Okay, so I'll start from the beginning. So I actually just got into orgs like a year ago. Never heard of them, and so I play volleyball. That's like what I do like most of the time. And so, anyways, one of my friends knew that I was into Big Brother and knew that I enjoyed watching Big Brother, and they were like, "Hey, like, have you ever heard of these online reality games?" And I was like, "No, I haven't. Whatever. They sound dumb." I did end up giving it a try, and then I played one, and it was like whatever. I came like 14th. Like I was brutal at it. Like I had no clue what was going on. And then so I had never seen Survivor before that. I've never watched one episode of Survivor. And so then I played a Survivor org, and I didn't know what the merge was. Like I didn't know what any format was and anything like that. And then so I was like, you know what, this is really interesting. I'm like, I really like this format. So then I started watching Survivor. So I've seen seasons 31 to 40 now, and gonna go back and watch kind of like the older seasons. But and then yeah, I just started playing orgs, and I host one called All Out right now. I haven't been very active in it because I've been busy with this. But I definitely think that my time in orgs is over because live reality games has my heart now. And yeah, I love everything about LRGs. It was such a good experience for me. It was so fun. So orgs are a thing of the past for me, I think. So
This was your first LRG you've ever played?
I've never done anything like this before. To kind of prepare, I played a couple minis with people, with a lot of the production members from Vancouver, and just like prepare myself for these kind of live games. And that's the only prep I've had, anything like that. So yeah.
How'd you hear about Survivor BC and get wrapped up in it?
So I played an org with Devin. We played Endure together, and we like worked together and loved each other because we both play poker and we think alike and stuff. And then he kind of got me into the community. So I went down and like went out for drinks with like Jaira and Cole and the whole squad, and kind of just like got immersed into that community. And I honestly like love those people. Like they're great. And it's weird because like my real life friends are like, you're like going to Vancouver to like hang out with these people who you met online. They really don't understand it, but to me, like they're my friends. Like they're not just my online friends. Like they're my real life friends. I love them. And so yeah, I think my friends are starting to understand it now after watching me play and being like, okay, I get it. I get it.
You took so many of my opening questions, Steven. That was amazing. Like, you should do this for a living, my friend. You're excellent. So, yeah, so that's fascinating. So you're really relatively new into this, But I don't know if it's the poker background. I was rewatching your confessionals for the last hour preparing for this, and you have such a great head on your shoulders for this game. Like, you had a great sense. I was really intrigued. Let's get right into it. So you have one confessional where you're like, oh, I really could use Jeff in this.
Oh, Kirk, you there?
Where'd you go? No, not Kirk.
Well, since we're live, I'll just continue. So one thing I thought was really interesting about your play style is you thought through things or did things I never considered before. Like, I don't quite remember the confessionals, but one thing that intrigued me was you threw your vote on Jenny at your very first tribal council. And you said, I've seen this work before. Can you just kind of walk through that whole mentality and how you approach the game?
Okay. So I'll preface all this with, because Kirk was referencing my poker background. So there's something in poker called game theory, which I study. And for the people out there that don't know what game theory is essentially like, what is the right move in this exact spot if you ran it through a simulation of like 1,000 times, right? Like over time, like what is the right move most of the time. So just going into that, kind of like knowing that I am very big on like game theory, and I analyze those situations. So when it came to the Jeff vote, there was 3 pairs, and then there was Jeff, right? And we were all voting Jeff, and that was going to happen. So it was me and Jenny were a pair, Mitch and Keenan were a pair, and Aiden and Andrew were a pair. So of course, the ideal situation is to play the middle between the pairs. You never want to be one of the target pairs. And so I figured the best way to play the middle would be to sow mistrust. And now this vote, me putting my vote on Jenny, of course, doesn't work.
Kirk, you back?
If there he is.
Kirk, is there less delay on your side now?
There is less delay. We're having some Wi-Fi issues, so.
Gotcha.
Better. The Jenny vote doesn't work unless people perceive us as very, very close, right? Because that's the only way I get away with it, because they'll never ever suspect me to vote Jenny, because it makes no sense for me to vote Jenny. So in this sense, then I was able to say to Andrew and Aiden, well, I think it was Mitch that did it. Like, it makes sense. He's kind of like playing off these weird excuses, which he was, which is great for me. And then to Mitch and Keenan, I was like, well, it had to have been like Andrew. Like, I wouldn't vote that way, and I know you two didn't. And so that allowed me to play the middle. Fortunately and unfortunately, we couldn't really see it pan out, because we never went to tribal after that. With the 6 of us, I kind of hoped we did, because I like making those moves and then seeing them flourish. However, wasn't able to really see it, do anything. So we were in a good spot though, Jenny and I think so.
Well, I think it's interesting that you're talking about taking a very game theory approach to Survivor, especially because that kind of predecesses itself on being every player is rational and acts in what should be their best interest. And one of the things with Survivor is sometimes people don't play rationally like you'd expect. Like you say, I think Keenan's best move is this, and you should do this, and then Keenan might just do something different, and it's just not part of what you anticipate. Did you see that happening when you play, and how did you react to it?
So yeah, obviously with Keenan, there were a lot of times where I would be like, Keenan, please do this in this situation, and then he'd throw it out the window and just do his own thing. And so I can't really predict that kind of stuff. I think if in the future I was to play, I would definitely work with people that I can predict their moves. I think that was my downfall in working with someone like Keenan. Someone like Jenny, I can always predict what she's going to do most of the time. She's very loyal, and she always is pretty truthful to me. Whereas Keenan, he's loyal and truthful, but at the same time, there's just this sense in him that he needs to go berserk all of a sudden for kind of no reason. And so, with players being predictable, obviously, it's a lot better and helpful for me.
Kirk, before you bounced out real fast, you were talking about early confessional night had. Do you want to go back to that?
Well, it had to do with this vote. Really, it went with what changed from wanting to keep Jeff around to that morning you were like, Jeff's got to go.
Okay, so interesting question. So when I do production for my org, one question we ask in interviews is a hypothetical question, and it's basically, if everybody in the game wants to vote out your number one ally, what do you do in that situation? You know, and so it was funny because I was like, okay, this is kind of this situation because Jeff wasn't my number one, but I definitely could have seen him being my number one because we're both from Kelowna, we're both very alike. We both play poker, and we got along really well. Like I'm pretty sure Jeff was like my favorite person on the tribe. However, with the exact dynamic of having 3 duos, and then if I kept Jeff around, then we could have, you know, me, Jenny, and Jeff, I guess, could have done something. But I saw the other players, I guess, as more malleable, like Keenan and Mitch. And so I felt like they were like people I definitely wanted to like go far with. I don't know like what the right play is in that exact scenario. I think you fight for your like ride or die later in the game, but I think early on in the game it's okay to let them go, and that's why I let Jeff go in that situation.
One thing that I find interesting as a viewer, the whole like duos manifesting in these tight 2-person alliances, kind of in this weird triangle formation where everyone's starting to target each other. I really saw that as a viewer happening after the Jeff vote, but you're saying that was happening pretty quickly in the formation of Thyatira?
I think okay, so okay, so I watched and listened to both the interviews you did with Stevie and Tyler. And so one thing Tyler mentioned was Keenan winning the game. And so throughout this, I'm going to kind of ixnay all that. And so here's the first thing. And don't get me wrong, Keenan, I love you. You are a brother to me, and that will never change. However, I have to defend this point to the death because I think it's so ridiculous. But the first thing Keenan did, which was very interesting, was he made a target of himself in 2 ways for no reason. This is before we went to Tribal. We all went to bed and 20 minutes had passed and he assumed everyone was asleep. So he goes and looks for an idol. Like, I've only been watching Survivor for a year, but I know that's not like a good really thing to do. And he's not in any like situation that he needs an idol either. So he goes and then he comes back and he's like, Mitch, come, let's go, let's talk. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if they're close. And so like they both leave. And so right there, it's like 2 people that are like this, that are looking for idols that don't care. And then Andrew and Aiden just always seemed really tight. They got along. Every time I asked them, like, who are you vibing with? It was always like first names with each other. So like, I'm like, okay, they're together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll get into that. And then me and Jenny just clicked right away. Like, we're both like, very like sociable people. And we just clicked like right off the bat. And then yeah, Jeff was kind of just like there, I guess. And so, yeah, that's how that kind of manifested in a way.
So were you kind of feeling to ride and die with Jenny at that very kind of beginning portion? Is that who you wanted to go with?
Yeah. Like, I feel like more importantly was a voting block for me was majority. Because I think the game, I think you can't be like, oh, this is my person 100%. No matter what happens, I'm taking them. I think that's a stupid way to play. I play round by round, and it's like, if Jenny needs to go at some point, then she'll go. But for now, I just need a voting block of people that are very loyal. And so, yeah, I saw Jenny as being loyal. So it benefits me to take her as far as I need to, essentially. So yeah, she was my ride or die.
So I'm looking at the charts I made of like just every single round, the immunity challenges, the reward challenges, all pre-merge, and your tribe dominates like no other, right? Like I'm sure you weren't expecting to be eating so well in those first couple of days out in the Vancouver wilderness. Were you expecting that to happen? And to what extent were you tempted to maybe throw a challenge towards the end?
So like, I'm a very outgoing, confident, borderline cocky personality. And so with that comes a very competitive nature. And I love winning. I love winning challenges, especially challenges where like I can shine. Like I really like doing that. And I also think that I do think that it is a tiny misplay on my part of shining in challenges. I think that my tribe wants to keep me around pre-merge. So I think in a cast where there's like 24 people, it makes more sense to be like this. But with 14 people, you're going to merge so fast that maybe it doesn't make as much sense to put that kind of challenge threat, because that's what everyone saw me as. I definitely didn't expect to be eating as good as I did. Like every day it was like, what fast food are we going to have today? Like, I'm so excited. And over there, they're having like one cracker on peanut butter and they're like starving and shaking. And I'm just like going to the hotel and going to McDonald's and all this crap. And so my experience was a little like tainted in a way that it was like not as organic, I guess, because we just kind of like won everything. So
well, so one thing that you saw happen is every time your tribe won these immunity challenges, you would send players in other tribe to Island of Patmos, which was the season's version of Exile Island, essentially. Did it ever occur to you, like, maybe it's a better reason, better for our tribe to have people being sent versus continually sending the players in the other tribe over there, and who knows what's coming out of it?
We thought about that, and like we definitely considered it, but I also think that like it's hard to kind of play the game around advantages and stuff like that, because you don't know if they're getting disadvantages. Like you don't actually know what's happening until you actually go there. And so I think for us to like throw a challenge for like what could be a 50-50 for like a steal a vote, rather than building the morale and like the togetherness and the closeness, which is what I wanted to do, which is my initial plan, was to just win, get to merge with majority, and we'd be such a tight group that we would just go nuts at 6, of course, with circumstances that would never play out in this specific season, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
You were very close to executing that night. So I have a question for you. So you were fortunate to go to only one tribal, lost your boy Jeff, but it was okay. Like you said, it's a casualty at the start of the game. Let's say you guys actually lose another challenge before merge. What do you think goes down? Who is the next person voted off of? I can't pronounce your tribe's name. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is like an interesting one, and I know in confessionals people have said like, oh, like maybe they would have, like maybe Mitch Keen and Andrew and Aiden would have worked together, but I honestly don't see that happening at all. Like I feel like I just feel like me and Jenny are too good socially in a spot like that to let ourselves become a target. And I also feel like everyone else can be manipulated much easier. So I don't think it's either of us in that spot. I do think it is close, because at the time I know I was leaning Andrew and Aiden, like working with them, just because they were kind of like more enjoyable to be around, I guess, right? Just for some simple reason like that. But then like it's funny because it's like also like you have to keep Keenan around because he's so entertaining. Like there's never a dull moment with him. Every like thing he references is so obscure and it's just like hilarious all the time. Like everyone's being compared to a dog every other side. He's like, no, you're like a bloodhound. You're like just so much, like, I don't know. That guy's so fascinating. And so it would be hard to say which one of the 4 goes, but it would be probably either Andrew or Mitch, one of the 2.
Very interesting. It still doesn't impact your game at all. So regardless, so let's kind of, because we could talk about your rewards and your immunities, which really set you up. I mean, it's not as interesting for the people at home usually, but when you're in the game night, I understand what you're talking about. You get that food, your competitor doesn't get that food, and you're a leap ahead of them. But let's get to merge, where shit went crazy this season. And like Stevie said an hour ago, people were scrambling. What were your major moves at merge?
Okay, so if I made any mistakes in the game, it was at 10. It was the first round of merge. I feel like I played my worst round by far, for a few simple reasons. So like I was talking about game theory earlier, if I played this season 1,000 times, knowing that I have a 6 strong, obviously I didn't know about Andrew and Aiden and Tyler's relationship. So I should have thrown that challenge, though, that immunity challenge, at like almost 100% of the time. I should have thrown that. But I didn't. And Yeah, I think so, because I need to not make such a big target of myself, but I won that and I actually needed it, which is crazy, but I don't think I need that in that spot, which is why I throw that. But I was just like, well, fuck it. Like I'll win, because it's like, sorry if I can't swear.
You
I
can
won't
swear.
swear.
You're fine.
It's all good.
I was like, I just want to win, and I know I can win this challenge, because like I always crush this challenge in orgs, and I was like, I'll just win it, whatever. But knowing now that I needed it, I still have the same philosophy of I should throw that challenge, because I don't need to make a target of myself, and I did. But I needed it, so I'm happy with the result.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I agree, because like I think if you had thrown it, it would have been very bad for you, that tribal council. I could easily see Tyler just saying, "Everyone, I want Night Out. He plays orgs. Orgs are bad. Therefore, let's take him out."
Yeah, 100%. I think I go a lot in that spot. So,
so
sorry,
did
I'll
yeah, go back like
sorry,
to
yeah,
what
I
you're
was
saying.
going to my other mistakes. So there was that, and then there was the, like, at 10 or whatever. Basically, I wasn't very good at building bonds with the people on the outs that I thought were on the outs, that I perceived. I kind of was just like, okay, we have 6. Let's just chill. Let's just go to bed. Like, I was the first one to bed. Like, obviously, I have immunity, so like that's a reason. But I also think that's a mistake. And basically, like, those conversations didn't go very well for me that night, because I was like, hey, Tyler, like, who do you want to vote out? Like, and then he was like, okay, like, we'll do Stevie. You know, he's kind of blowing smoke up my ass, because he knows what's actually going on. And so that was definitely like the messiest round for me. I was definitely like really frustrated, obviously, when Mitch got voted out, and then I found out like what happened. And then I continued my errors the next round, like after that tribal, when when Aiden and Andrew lied to me, and like I was just like, you guys are idiots. There's no reason to lie to me in this spot. You're just burning your bridges. I think that was their actual downfall. Like, their biggest mistake of the game was lying about that, because if they tell the truth, they can actually still build trust. But when you're lying, and then I know you're lying, and I'm like, I know for a fact that you're lying and you're doing it to my face, then there's going to be 0% chance we work together ever again. So I think that was their biggest mistake, was lying and saying it was us. And when, like, I'm like, okay, you know, and then they're like, oh, it was Keenan. And I was like, yeah, I know.
It's you and Aiden. You're just like, why'd you? And it's like, I didn't do it. And you're like, why'd you? And it's like, it's not me. And you're like, I know it's not me. And so, then you kind of say, well, I guess it's both Jenny and Andrew, but you're working with Jenny like you are. You know it's not Jenny. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, and so I'm like not trying to like blow up at him and be like, you freaking idiot. I know it's not you. I'm trying to like entertain these scenarios that he's trying to like get me to go over. But like at the same time, it's just like, you know, burning those bridges with me. I like, when I got approached about the plan to get Aiden out at 9, like if he's like honest with me and is like, look, I have a relationship with Tyler, let's work with him, blah blah blah, then he might not go home at 9 like at all. But he pissed me off too much. I'm like, I don't care. See you later. You know, like, I think that was a mistake by him.
Totally. This is such a good lesson for people at home that want to go out and play their first LRG or their 10th LRG. Sometimes you have to confess to your lies in order to save yourself. What a crazy concept in Survivor. Like, that is such a clear example of that. And your instinct usually is to keep lying because you think that's going to keep your cover. But what you're looking to establish, like you're saying, is that trust with somebody you've just burned a bridge, and you're trying to rebuild it, which is the hardest thing to do. That's fascinating to know.
Oh, go ahead.
So, just like quickly, while we're on the point of like lying, like, because I find lying a very fascinating thing. Like, I find it very interesting. And I would say, like, for myself, I'm like one of the best liars I know. Like, I'm very good at lying. But I think the key with lying to someone is you have to tell people truth early on, and you have to like make sure that they know that like it's truthful, like with facts and proof, and be like, this is the truth and I'm telling you the truth. Because it's funny, I'm looking back at like confessionals, and I watched one of Andrew when he hit jury or whatever. He's like, Knight is the most loyal and honest person I've ever met. Like, I don't think that guy's ever told a lie. And it's because I've planted these like seeds of like truthfulness throughout the game and building that trust with him, of course. And then I can get away with these bigger lies, and they'll just be like, well, you know, like he doesn't lie. Like, and there was this narrative of Knight never lies forever. And I was telling so many lies. Like the first vote, I lied to everybody. And it's just like, you know, you can get away with it. So.
Yeah, that is so brave. I don't want to go back to the past and talk about the Jenny vote, but doing a hinky vote in Survivor is so hard because you don't have 13 people voting like in Big Brother. So like that was such a risk, and that definitely upped your gameplay for me. Like watching you as a player, like that is super smart. It's risky, and I think to get to the end of Survivor, you do have to do some risky things if you're going to win. I have another question, and excuse me if I'm jumping too far, but in ahead. But I thought the final 7 for you was really interesting. You are at kind of a disadvantage, right? Because of the Andrew Aiden crap that we can't really do anything about. But am I not right? Your side has not 1 idol, but 2 idols.
Correct. Yeah.
This, I think, is the tragic downfall of Knight. I really do. But tell me if I'm wrong. Can you talk me through what the hell went wrong during Final 7? Because that's where I pinpointed it.
Yeah. So we perceived Dylan was with us. That at the end of the day, that's what we perceived, because like we thought we had Dylan, and then we didn't have Dylan, and then the 4 of them voted together. And up to that point, like they had just gotten Aiden out and Andrew out, 2 people that we all like said we'll get out together, no problem. And we knew that they were with Tyler. So like it's very hard for me to not think that they're going to be with us again, right? Because they just did that. It does make sense, like looking back, that they take out Jenny in that situation. And I think it was a big mistake on our part not noticing that they would do that. One thing I did that round to ensure my safety alone was because I had a tight bond with Dylan. I told him that like whatever happens this round, I'm getting Keenan to use the idol on me. And then so like I told him that, and I was like, yeah, Keenan said like he would, because I didn't want to get blindsided or anything. I knew people would be starting to take a shot. So I was like, yeah, no, like he's playing the idol on me this round. So at least that ensures our safety, like making Dylan feel good. And then I go to Keenan and I'm like, under no circumstances do you play your idol tonight. Under like no situation do you play your idol. Like we need it for next round, I promise you. And so I knew they weren't going to vote me, just like based on mine and Dylan's conversation. I didn't know if like Keenan would go home, but I didn't really think it was possible. And then we all got blindsided when Jenny went home. And then of course, like Keenan, and this is another thing, is like he hadn't made any moves up to that point, and then all of a sudden he just goes berserk and flies off the handle and says, "Cut the corn, I'm playing my idol." And we're all like literally everyone just looks at each other and we're all like, okay, like for what reason? And I'm just like head in my hands. I'm like, what? Why is like this happening? And then Jenny goes home, and then so my ally goes home, and I lose 2 idols. So very, very frustrating round for my game for sure.
Did you know you knew Jenny had the idol, right?
Yeah, she told me.
Were you scared that if you told her to play the idol right then, that you would go home?
No, I actually was fairly confident that I was going to be safe that round regardless. It never crossed my mind, like, because they were only telling me that they wanted to flush Keenan's idol. So, and that's okay. I guess I should have mentioned that. Is I should have like I was like, okay, well, I'll get him to play it on me. And then that was like, okay, yeah, he's playing it on me. And then that's all they wanted. That's all they would tell me. Like Dylan and Stevie lied to me, like just straight up that round. And so they had numbers regardless. So at the end of the day, they could have, like, you know, they can't tell the truth with idols in the game. So they're going to always lie and always vote as a 4 if they wanted to flush idols. So
I was under the impression that knowledge of Jenny's idol was also public too.
Yeah, so Stevie saw her like find it, and then she was like, I think Stevie saw me. And then Stevie at the hotel was like, yeah, like I think Jenny has an idol or something. And I didn't know because she hadn't told me that. So I was like, I can't confirm or deny that yet. But I assumed it was true. And then she told me like when I got back from the hotel or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, like because Jenny and I perceived Dylan to be like 100% with us, because he like, especially at the Aiden vote, or yeah, the Aiden vote when Tyler wanted to vote Dylan. That was a tribal where the only whispering basically in the game happened was because I was like, Dylan, like he's doing this, like Tyler's throwing your name out. He told me, let's vote Tyler instead, and that's what I pushed. That was like all the whispering, and we did have 5 votes on Tyler, but we had 4 votes. We needed Stevie, but I don't think we could have flipped him at tribal. So then that's when we stuck with the Aiden plan. But yeah, 7 was the worst round of my game for sure. It was demoralizing, and I cried when Jenny left because I was just like, I was in a good spot, and I'm such an underdog now to win this game. Like it was just looking like there was no hope.
But it was so fun to watch. And I mean, you almost took out Tyler. Had Jenny played that idol, Tyler goes home at 7. And then what happens, I can't even predict. I mean, that's like it's going to 6 with 3 and 3.
Yeah.
And would you be willing? Here's a good question. Knight, would you have been willing to go to Rocks for Jenny and Keenan?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, especially because Keenan has his idol at the final 6 theoretically in this world, and he plays it. So already you're in a better situation where potentially only you on your side's going the Rocks, or only Jenny's going the Rocks, or the
if Keenan's idol wasn't, if it was good till 5, I wouldn't have got him to play it. I would have just went to Rocks. But if it was good till, because I don't think they would have went to Rocks. I don't think Tyler would have went to Rocks. Or no, Tyler would be out. I don't think they would have went to Rocks for each other, honestly. Like that's the nice thing about Keenan and Jenny is they're both just like insanely deathly loyal to a fault in their game. And so it doesn't make sense for me to flip on them because they're always at 5, they're always going to vote with me. At 4, they're always going to go with me. Like Jenny told me after the game, like she wanted me to take me to the end, even if she knew like I was going to beat her. Like that's the kind of people that I was working with. Yeah, it's the dream for sure. So definitely would have went to Rocks in that situation if they wanted to do that. But I don't think they would have, because they know we wouldn't have like flipped on each other. It doesn't make sense.
Could you maybe talk through? You mentioned at the final 10 you went to bed early. You didn't really socialize with the minority at the time, which would have been Dylan, Luke, Stevie, and Tyler. Can you kind of talk through your relationship with them and how it kind of shifted or evolved through the merge? Especially because it sounds like you thought you were closer with Dylan and really pulled him over to your side.
Okay, so my relationship, I'll just go through each one. My relationship with Luke didn't really evolve much. We kind of were just very friendly with each other, but it never changed. We never worked together on a game level for any move. Stevie, I've known prior. So Stevie and I played an org together. And then while we were playing the org, when we merged, I actually went over to his house and we had a beer. And like, I love Stevie to death. Who doesn't? Like, he's literally the best human. And so we hung out, but like, I have this differing philosophy from Tyler, who is like, I will pregame with anybody. I will take any advantage to win. I'm not like that. It's like we've actually gotten to like a kind of heated debate about this when I met him, actually, about like cheating in games. I don't classify that as cheating, but like he says he'll cheat in a game. But in this instance, pre-gaming isn't cheating, in my opinion. But so I knew Stevie, and which is funny because like we never really worked together at all, and I'm fine with that because you know, I don't really roll that way. And same with Tyler. I knew him before, and we just got in some conflict at the mini we played. Like we had like a heated debate about right and wrong. Essentially, he's team wrong, I'm team right, or however you want to perceive it, And so, yeah, Tyler and I's relationship, though, is, like, amazing because it's, like, every round we just, like, are going after each other, essentially. Every time we go and, like, hey, let's talk, like, we just basically troll each other for 10 minutes and then, like, leave. Like, we don't, like, we just BS each other the whole time. And then when game's not happening, we are best of friends. We're, like, laughing, everything. Like I'm hanging out with him and Stevie tonight, like, after this. And like we're really good friends, and I love him. And but it's fun to have that dynamic of like two people going after each other, like really hard, two sides. And then with Dylan, my relationship with him was probably the most dynamic, where it was basically, I feel like I flirted with Dylan the most because he was very receptive to it. And so like night 0, like we talked, so it's funny, every day we woke up, like probably happened 4 times, we had the exact same outfit on, to the socks, to the hoodie, to the hat, like everything was the same. So we just loved each other's style. So I just like play off that. And so every time we would have like a immunity challenge against their tribe, I'd like wave at Dylan or give him a wink or something. And and then so come merge, like we obviously just like talk and we're like, I really want to work with you. He's like, I want to work with you and Jenny like so bad. You guys are so cool, blah blah blah. And then so we built that bond, and then like I think we started to trust each other like really hard at the Aiden vote when that actually went through, and then when Tyler tried to target him and I told him that and all this stuff. That's why, like, I know we're gonna get into like the final 6, which is kind of like the big climax of my game, but that's why it was really hard to do to like what I did to him. And so yeah.
Tyler has a comment here. Knight loses debates against me and loses final tribal council against Keenan. So this would be part of the trolling conversation back and forth between you and him.
I'm gonna kick his ass tonight.
Before we get to the final 6, I have one other question. Do you think do you think Andrew and Aiden could have convinced you not to vote Tyler and voted for Stevie, Dylan, or Luke? Do you think that you could have been convinced to target someone besides Tyler that opening round?
So we actually talked about this. We're like, okay, if we merge, we're doing Luke, like 100%. They're gonna expect us to do Tyler. We got to do Luke, and then that was always the plan. Even that night, the first thing was like, we're doing Luke, right? Yeah, we're set on Luke. Okay, great. But then I went and thought about it, and I'm like, we actually are strong. We actually have majority. Why don't we actually just take a shot at Tyler? Like, why shouldn't we? And I realized it's a flaw in my game for the simple reason of Tyler needs to be in the game with a player like me because he's a bigger target than me. And that was one thing that I failed to recognize was I do need shields in the game. Otherwise, I'm just like deemed as this massive threat and I'm next to go. So I shouldn't have targeted him for that reason. I mean, if he doesn't have friends in real life, then he goes home. And so I think this is the first time I was screwed over in the game. Was Tyler's pregame alliance that I had no idea about. I think if Tyler goes home and the 6 of us are strong, I think I win the game, honestly. And so that was the first time I got screwed, and then obviously the second time was final 6. So
go into the final 6 for us.
Okay. Final 6 was, looking back on it, the funnest round of the game because I felt like I was at the top of my game as a player, but it sucks to get kind of twisted out essentially. So here's what happened is they were just going to split the votes on me and Keenan. But by the grace of God, I found an idol and I was so stoked, and everyone thought it was fake and they thought I just like was making this like big plan. And it's really funny watching that tribal back and Tyler explain like how I found it, because it happened exactly like I found it. Like it was just in the middle of the ground, but there was like a cross like sticking up, and then it was buried under that. And so I was like looking, there was like 5 minutes before tribal, and I was like, holy shit. So then I like kicked it out of the way and I like dug, and it was there, and I was like, no way. And then I ran and grabbed Keenan instantly, and I'm like, okay, like we'll figure this out. We'll get out of this spot. I was like, if I win immunity, because here's another. I'll go back to this Keenan thing. Remind me about this Keenan point, because this is another like crazy thing he does in the game. But I was like, if I win immunity, like we're good in this spot, because then I idle you, and then one of them goes home regardless. And then so the immunity challenge happens, and basically what they did, it was one at a time, and then when you came back, like there was an order, and Jenny picked the order before. That was like her responsibility at getting voted out at 7. And then so Keenan was first to compete, but he sat out for the idol at 5, which is so absurd. And then and then I go next, and then so I competed, and then Dylan went next. So then it's me, Dylan, and Keenan, and I have about 10 minutes, 15 minutes with him before the next person's gonna come back. So I'm sitting there with Keenan, just the 2 of us, and I think of this plan. I'm like, okay, Dylan is the only person that I could see flipping because he's the most emotional. And I feel like if I play on his emotions, I can get him to do something. So I told him this plan that I came up with, and I'm like, Dylan, like, I basically articulated his game to like the way I saw it. And I was like, you can't win because like you're in this 4 and you guys have all done the same moves, but like other people are more impressive. Stevie's more impressive and Tyler's more impressive. I was like, you actually like need to do something and flip on them if you were wanting to win this game. Like, trust me. And like, I'm playing like, I'm basically just manipulating him so hard and like playing on his emotions. And I was like, look, I have a plan. I was like, who do you want out? Like out of the 3 of them, because we can get them out if you vote for me and I idle. And then because he was supposed to vote for Keenan. And then I was like, we can just play it off after as like you've like effed up the vote and you forgot. And then I was like, he was like, well, let's put 2 votes on Luke. Like, and I was like, you're actually willing to do that? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. Like, I promise. I'm like, okay. So then obviously this is like the only hope I have. So then I was the only one that actually knew where the votes were going because the whole time I was like, well, I'm going to get Stevie out. Stevie's the biggest threat to win this game other than myself and Tyler. And I think Stevie's like a big glue there. I know they said like Luke was a glue, but I feel like Stevie is like harder to, it was harder for me to like talk and reason with him because he just had this narrative of like wanting his agenda done and not mine or anyone else's, right? Which I think is really cool for him. But so I was like, Stevie's going to go. So I try and pull off this 2-1 vote with 3 nullified votes on myself. Of course, Stevie wins immunity in a tiebreaker nonetheless. Mm-hmm. So it was really heartbreaking not watching that happen because then at 5, it's me, Keenan, and Dylan with Keenan's idol. And then I think I would just have to take out them 2 and then I win. I think I win 4 and 3's immunity challenge, honestly. And I think I win the game if Stevie doesn't win immunity at 6. And so I think that was the second time in the game that I was screwed out of a win by something kind of out of my control. So of course, also like if I knew who won immunity, I would have just taken a shot at Luke or Tyler in that situation too. Yeah. And then the same scenario plays out where it's like, it's still 3 against 2 and I still think I win. And so maybe in hindsight, like it's kind of a gamble because it's like, well, who's going to win immunity? Who has the best chance? And so, but also like taking that shot at Stevie, I thought was like the best play overall. So it was an interesting tribal for sure.
And that was Stevie's first immunity win. So that's before he kind of began his immunity train. So how do you predict that happening?
Exactly. Yeah. And like, I really wanted it to work because it was such a sick play, honestly. Like I really liked that one is the one I was definitely like proud of. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, and we came back. And it was kind of funny because like we're at 5 now because Keenan goes home, and then they're pissed. Everyone's so mad, but no one's mad at me because like I'm just like the dude in the middle because it's like Dylan and Stevie essentially, and then Luke and Tyler, and they feel like betrayed, and everyone's mad, and so like I was in the middle of like these 2 groups that were like, okay, we're voting out the person, but at the end of the day, they all just came together and were like, no, we're going to stick with the plan. It's going to be the Ephesus boys to the end. Knight's going home. Like he's done too much shit. Like he's just going to win. So then that's kind of when they decided to take me out. So 6 was a big moment for my game for sure.
Well, were there any last ditch efforts you made at Final 5 to try to get some of them to swing on each other?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't give up without a fight. So I sat at the camp for about 40 minutes thinking of like, what's my options here? And like everyone's just like talking and I'm just staring at the sky, like thinking of any route I could take. Like, what's the best move here? It's funny because people just like think like I'm super sad or I've given up, but I'm literally just thinking like, how can I get out of this situation? And so I figured the only thing was to play on Luke, that he was a huge GOAT and that he's never winning. And so I took him aside for like which I believed, and I fully like still believe that he was the GOAT of the season. And so I took him aside for like a 30-minute conversation and, just like pounded in the idea that like he has to like make a move or he's done. Like same sort of thing I did with Dylan, but Dylan actually was going to vote with me. Like he said, if you have Luke, I'll vote with you. Otherwise, like I'm going to vote for you. And so Luke says that he'd never considered it, but I think he did. The only reason like Luke ended up winning the game was because Tyler was in jury. Luke had 0 votes going into the finale before Tyler got there. No one wanted to vote for Luke, and like I guess he still always has Stevie's vote because Stevie, wasn't persuaded by Tyler, but Keenan was always gonna like vote not for Luke. Like we were all like, we're not doing Luke, and then Tyler comes, and then Luke wins essentially. So
Wow.
Can you talk a little bit more about the jury dynamics? Because we didn't. I think we got a couple snippets of the jury. We got to see a little bit when you arrived, a little bit when Steven arrived. What was the jury like when you got there, and how did it shift as the final players got voted out?
So like, everybody in the jury up to that point was like really sad to see me. They're all rooting for me, which was like really nice to hear. But then the 4 people left in the game, like obviously Aiden and Andrew, I think no matter what, we're always going to vote Tyler, no matter what. I just think that's the way it was going to be. If they were willing to flip so readily at 10 and just give up, I think they're just always going to vote for their friend. And so maybe they'll debate me on that, but we'll never find out the answer. So I think Stevie was the hugest favorite to win. Stevie would have swept anybody. And I think he beats Tyler because like at the end of the day, you just play like Tyler, you literally wouldn't be here if you didn't have 2 of your real life friends. Like you would have been gone at 10. And that's if I was in the finale against him, I'd play on that so hard and be like, at the end of the day, Tyler, like you're a very good player, but your pregame connection saved you, and otherwise you wouldn't be here. And then like he did once his like 2 friends were gone, obviously he did great work. And so I think that's where his game is like really shines. But Tyler was, probably gonna win against like Luke just had no chance of winning, I guess. That was like the dynamic. Luke had no shot. He was the GOAT, like we all saw it. It's amazing to me that he won. It's amazing.
So then Tyler comes. So how did Tyler pitch Luke's game that persuaded people?
He said like he was like, okay, well, you don't have to do anything in the game to get to the end. He's like, he just positioned himself well socially, and like he was just, the glue guy. He was just loyal. And I was like, okay, but like that's Stevie too, but Stevie's actually willing to like play the game and play it hard and overcome and have these like he has the narrative. Like he just Luke didn't really have that. I didn't see much of like Luke's game, and even when he was like saying it at the end, it was just like how well he positioned himself. And it's like kind of funny like listening to like the final tribal, because Tyler was like freaking out at Dylan for kind of rationalizing the things he did after the game. I feel like Luke did that too when he was talking about using Tyler as a shield and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, did you think about that going in, or were you like, oh yeah, this makes sense now that I've thought about it? And it's like, yeah, Tyler was a good shield for me, and so I don't know. Like, I really don't think Luke deserved the win, and I think Tyler will even admit it. Luke's his friend, and he wanted Luke to win more, and that's why Tyler will always get what he wants if he pushes it hard enough, and that's why he'll always pick Keenan over me, because he just doesn't want me to win. It could be player X next to me, but he tries to piss me off because he picks Keenan. So.
But it's so interesting to watch because you guys are players that actually play the game. I was talking about this earlier. Like, you're willing to talk to the people that aren't going to work with you, Knight, and it's riveting to watch. And that's what we need in Survivor players or Big Brother players or these live reality games players, is like people who will actually try things. Like, I'm still really intrigued that you tried to flirt with Dylan. I think maybe you could have tried a little bit harder, because it could have worked maybe and helped you out a little bit more. But I mean, that said, you were clearly playing, and I'm excited to watch you again someday. Like you said, the bug bit you, the live game, and so I'm intrigued to see what you try next. Do you want to try Survivor, or do you want to go out on a limb, do Big Brother or the Mole? What are you looking for?
Like, I feel like my best format will always be Big Brother, just because I feel like Survivor, if you're like, if there's no hope, there's no hope, right? Whereas Big you
I think you're muted, Knight. Oh no.
hello, am I back?
Okay, we can hear
You're
you.
back. Yep.
I'm
You
good.
can just
Okay,
just
very
redo that
cool. Sorry.
answer.
Yeah, I think Big Brother allows for if you're really screwed in situations in Survivor, you can't get out of it. Whereas Big Brother allows for kind of more of that. So I definitely am gonna play a live game again, and hopefully soon. Once this COVID stuff ends, I want to go play. I have a couple in mind. And I obviously like would love to get on like Big Brother Canada or something. I think something like that I would crush. It would be a lot of fun, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
What are your main takeaways coming out of Survivor BC? What did you learn about, how you play, or what would you do in future games? Like what are your main takeaways from your experience?
I feel like yeah, definitely I like to look at my positive, but I also really like to focus on my negatives and be like, okay, what can I do better? And so I definitely think my cockiness comes out in spots and it rubs people the wrong way. It could have been bad for jury management in a lot of situations too. But I also feel like I combat that with when people actually get to know me one on one. They find I'm actually pretty genuine most of the time. And so it's hard to say. I definitely would like to not eat as well next time because, yeah, it was a different experience than most people normally have. So I feel like I lucked out pretty hard this one for sure.
Were there any other fun moments or things that happened that we haven't talked about, or things you want to discuss?
So Tyler mentioned the whole Keenan ripping off his pants and stuff. Keenan, I'll just talk about Keenan for a bit. Keenan is probably one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. So I didn't really know what to think of him at first, but then you get to know him. He's very lovable. He's very sweet. He's very genuine. And you can tell he's passionate about Survivor. And he's passionate about Survivor BC too, which is cool. He just has this joy for life and joy for getting to know people, which I really appreciate. When it came to the game player Keenan, because I saw every facet of his game, I can't get behind this argument that Keenan beats anybody or beats me in a final two, because it would have been funny because this is the stuff I would have said at a final tribal against him if I felt it was going not my way. But Keenan, yeah, obviously has overcome some stuff socially. I feel like socially is where he's at his strongest. It's the strategic aspect is where he's had the issues, the idle play, and then this is kind of my favorite is at final six is throwing immunity for an idle at final five. So essentially what he does is he doesn't win the challenge to make a bigger target on himself. So then it's just pretty ridiculous because it was a 4-2 and it's me and Keenan. I'm always going to go home in that spot because I'm a bigger threat. So the only thing he can do to go home is ensure that he's a bigger threat, which is exactly what he does. And so it's things like that I just can't get behind as a winner of the season. And I think the only reason why he would win is because Tyler would troll. And he's told me that in real life is he'd vote because he just would love to troll me. And I think it's funny, but come on. Freaking doofuses.
Well, I certainly hope the next time you play Survivor, it's not with Tyler, so you can have kind of a new experience, a different run of the game. But yeah, this has been fascinating night. Getting your perspective. To anybody who's just like you, has never gotten into LRG, what would you recommend? Any advice for them?
I think the biggest thing would be play a mini or something beforehand because especially the strategizing is very awkward and weird. Like it's not like how you picture when you like watch Survivor. Like it's basically like, oh, hey Jenny, do you want to go talk? And then it's just like really awkward dynamic. And so minis help me kind of become like accustomed to that like awkwardness. And then, you know, from there it's just like it's the first like awkward step. I don't know. I feel like that would be like my only advice would be to like practice in whatever way you can. I know that's not going to be available to most people, because we do have like a really good community down here in BC and with stuff like that. But it would be to just study and practice and get into game theory too.
So true. So true.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh,
I can hear
It
you,
might be
Kirk.
on
Can you
my
hear me
end.
tonight?
okay. Well, I was saying that it's so true. Game theory can really help you. You can hear me, Steven?
I can hear you, Kirk. I think
Oh, okay.
it's his headphones, so he just changed them out.
Oh, gotcha. So, I mean, this has been such an awesome day. I'm exhausted. This has been 3 hours of podcasting. I've never done this in my life. So thanks everybody who's watched and hit us up. I definitely want to watch you some more nights.
I definitely want to watch you. I've heard so many good things about you, and I need to watch you. I think that's what needs to happen. I've seen some episodes of season 5, so.
Oh, well, see, speaking of, let's drop this for Gyra right now. Everybody should go onto YouTube right now. You should find Survivor British Columbia or Survivor Fan Made British Columbia. It's called something like that. Like it, subscribe, follow. He's always putting stuff out. Gyra just said, robbed King, King Knight. Yes, absolutely. So definitely watch that. And yes, I have still survived through episode 5. I don't know what they're thinking.
That's so fun. So fun. I look forward to every episode. Like it's actually so interesting, especially because I like know a lot of the people. Like it's so entertaining to watch. So like for the people that watched this season, like thanks so much for like tuning in and you guys for like covering this stuff. Like I don't know. I find this whole world so fascinating because I didn't know about any of this a year ago, right? And so I just appreciate, you know, people being fans and wanting to actually like talk to me and pick my brain a little bit. And yeah, thank you to Gyra for like everything. Like Gyra is so sick. Like he's just the best human, honestly, on earth. So Gyra, I love you. And thanks for being a great host. So, and to the rest of production, of course, too. Steven, I know you did like so much shit in the background that no one saw. Like
It was fun.
you're clutch.
I was glad to be able to help out despite being in the wrong country for the game. So it was good to do something.
Next year we can be there. So that's it, my friends. That's the last one for today. Looking forward to possibly another podcast tomorrow where we'll talk about some old school live reality games that occurred before Facebook Live and smartphones. What are those? So looking forward to chat more about that stuff. Steven, Knight, it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to talk with you guys again in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Kirk, and thank you for being here, Knight.
Right on.